Thank you for being here at Mr. Super Oz. This video is going out, and this channel only exists because I, Oz, founded Gamble Comics, which first release was Everlasting Survivors, a 68-page graphic novel called All Day Long. Available now. Follow the link in the description that will take you to gamblecomics.com. While there, you can get hats, shirts, posters, much more, but most importantly, the story itself. Coming soon from Gamble Comics, BC Brute. God's Not Dead, In God We Trust, released in 2024 and ran 1 hour 37 minutes. The movie begins with Channel 4 breaking news about a congressman's death and how the opponent is now running unopposed. Did we know this congressman, Rick West? I feel like we didn't. But man, we do know the man he was in the race with. He was introduced in the second film in this franchise, that being Peter Kane, the man who tried to get Grace, or Sabrina the Teenage Witch, barred from teaching. Kane, without anyone to challenge him, thinks that he can end public displays of religion. Daryl Smith, who debuted in We the People, is back, and he thinks that Pastor Dave is the right man to take on Kane. Daryl, watching footage of Dave making a stand for the St. Jude Homeschooling Co-op last year in the movie universe on Capitol Hill, these movies do a good job of establishing the time that has passed from story to story. Before David Hill is even offered the position to stand up to the government, he is already in a fight with the government because they are pulling grant funding due to religious ness of the charity in question, a battered women's shelter that Dave and Martin are trying to keep going. They had a Bible study, and Big Daddy Government said, nah. Martin has grown so much in the 10 years since the first film. Martin uses his knowledge of world history to warn America of what could happen and what has happened around the world based on the events that he has knowledge of. Daryl Smith enlists the help of OC alumni, resident geek girl Anna, the best pal of Seth Cohen. Samari Armstrong is playing Lottie J, and she is big-time rivals with Peter Kane's campaign manager, played by Scott Baio, John Wesley. Peter Kane was one of the best villains back in the second film, so self-righteous and willing to throw anything and anyone under the bus to stop Grace from teaching. Pastor Dave is at a fundraiser event trying to keep the battered women's shelter open. This is where he meets Lottie, who helps him get a ring on a bottle, explaining how the game is rigged. Not such a subtle metaphor to explain how Washington works, but it was effective. I enjoy how Lottie's character is so straightforward and has a great attitude. Dave says he can't help her in her search for a replacement to challenge Kane. Hey, Superman, how you been? How's that All-American Lawman Dean Cain comic going? I knew Dean Cain was returning, but I didn't expect Mark to not have changed any and still be that dirty scoundrel from the first film. One fun game will be to see who can lie, cheat, and steal the most, Dean Cain's Mark or Scott Baio's John Wesley. Scott Baio might be winning that race to the bottom, since when he bumps into Lottie, he asks if she has put on weight. Daryl tells Dave who better to stand up for the truth than a man in the truth business. Pastor Dave has echoes of the truth run through his mind on his way to bed, and Dave goes to the airport the next day to stop Lottie from leaving. She tells Dave that she thinks that he can win. This team has one goal. Let's go save the country. The driver for Lottie, while she is in town, has been a reoccurring character who aspires to be more than he is. I like that Dave acknowledges that he knows the driver. The franchise is very organic in that way. Okay, this takes me all the way back to the beginning. The Newsboys are performing on the Mike Huckabee show before Dave goes on to be a guest, and the lead singer of the group hugs him. It amuses me that even though Pastor Dave is very reserved on the show, Peter Kane's campaign can still make a very anti-religion ad out of it, and it just shows the power of editing. The Kane campaign is confident that they have this one already. Kane versus Hill appear live together on a podcast. Only thing is, Peter Kane is live in studio with John Wesley and the host, while Lottie and Dave are away. So, of course, this was a setup job the whole time. Dave's microphone gets cut before he can finish his thought. John Wesley seems to be the one behind this. Wesley feels equal to Jeffrey, the original antagonist from the first film. I know Scott Baio is known to, like, a known quantity, but to me, it is something to step up into those Hercules boots, and it is an extra big thing when Herc was such a good bad guy. Mark is trying to buy into the Hill campaign, and it feels like a bad idea, since as a viewer we know that Mark is no stranger to Pastor Dave, the man who helped convince Mark's sister to get out of that terrible relationship with Professor Jeffrey. I really enjoy how well written this movie is. Dave asking Lottie if she came to help him or just to hurt Wesley. Lottie has a friend watching her son, and while she is with the campaign, and the friend tells her that forgiveness takes strength, but doesn't give much context, it feels like this is building to some big reveal. John Wesley is worried Mark's money will change the balance of the equation. With only 12 weeks remaining until the election, the Hill versus Kane debate is happening. Dave and Peter shaking hands before the debate seems disingenuous. Doesn't Pastor Dave stand for everything that Peter is against? In the debate, Dave says big government can't be the solution since big government is the problem. At one point, Peter tries to talk about how In God We Trust wasn't on money from the start, so Dave says, if our currency offends you, why not spend less of it? After the debate, the worst advice ever is given to Pastor Dave. You gotta drop God and go negative. What is with that terrible line from Lottie J? It just doesn't make sense. Even though Peter Kane feels like a dude who deserves a dirty campaign, it is just not the way that Dave works. Because Lottie learned from John Wesley, he also thinks that the Hill campaign will go negative, which leads to him asking Kane what he has to hide. At this point, I now believe Wesley will feed Lottie lies about Kane to make Dave look bad. The Hill campaign had a person investigating Kane and found nothing. So this new dirt is, just as I suspected, made up. Dave thankfully refuses to use it. The information gets leaked to or from the campaign, but Dave seems to believe in Lottie. No one else will stand up for her, and asks, can no one else see what she brought to the campaign? Because again, Pastor Dave's a good dude. Back to the original thing that got Dave to run, and that being the women's shelter, and specifically a woman asking Dave about a sign at the women's shelter that says that God provides through his people. The same lady asks, where are they, God's people? It's sad, but not the saddest thing the franchise has done. The Hill campaign is accused of fraud because of the so-called leak, the information that came out about Peter Kane's finances are proven false, but they're proven false so fast that it's so obvious that the Kane campaign, to me at least, made the whole story up. That gave them the ability to prove it wrong. Dave has so much compassion, and even though everyone, even Lottie herself, expects him to fire her, Dave does not. Martin pops into Dave's office with a letter from the St. Jude Board of Directors, and they want Dave to step down as the pastor since he is being smeared in public. Martin even says that the board wants Dave to leave his keys. It's harsh, but mildly understandable in this case. As Pastor Dave leaves St. Jude's Church, he gets caught in a storm. That seems very appropriate for all of the goings-on that are happening. As Dave gets home, he is visited by Daryl Smith. In Dave's house, Daryl has brought an acorn to make a point that even through very terrible times, or things that we perceive to be bad, like a forest fire, and, even devastating things like that forest fire, the seeds of a new acorn can be freed and create new growth. This was it was good stuff, laying out how what seems bad and painful in the moment can actually help us grow. Dave asks about non-believers, and Daryl believes we build it right and they will come. It is always impossible until it is done. So well written. The next day, Dave says his campaign is done spending money, not a penny more. Peter Kane is furious that Pastor Dave has not quit and yells out, he won't stay dead. Dave says running away never solved anything. It just makes you tired. We then find out that the dirt on the Kane campaign was actually released by Mark, who, yes, it was false information, but Mark is so dirty that he thought, if it can help, so be it. Because winning is what mattered to Mark. But the problem is it didn't help out the Hill campaign. Obviously that backfired. We see the newsboys praying for the Lord's will to be done. It surprises me how much I like seeing these guys return, because at first I thought, that's going to be a gag that I'll get tired of, the newsboys reoccurring, but I really haven't gotten tired of it. Peter Kane wants revenge, and finally, John Wesley is worried that he thinks another debate could fail. Lottie reveals that Christopher, her son, is also John Wesley's son, to Pastor Dave. So Christopher is very important to the story because John Wesley told her, Lottie, to take care of it. And that's why they are at odds, because of course she's going to be carrying that pain around with her. Dave tells Lottie, do not be afraid, which makes me think how I read somewhere that the Bible says, be not afraid, or some variation of that, like fear not, 365 times, which feels like not an accident, since generally we have 365 days a year. In the third and final debate / confrontation, since the podcast wasn't exactly a debate, Kane wants Hill to drop out. Peter tries to offer Dave everything he thinks that he wants to not continue. Peter even offers to fund the battered women's shelter, but Dave says America's crowning achievement didn't come from a piece of paper, but rather from God. Send the message to Washington. Fight the good fight. God gave you a voice. Use it. The movie was a great 5 out of 5. Martin is now preaching at St. Jude, and Dave has won the election. Mark's campaign fund provided the funding that the battered woman shelter needs, and the Newsboys play us out into the credits, which feels just right.